convinced himself that in case of the capture, he was planning this recapture. And he did it quickly, like you said, but boy, he did it for obvious human reasons,
right?
Which was like he's eyeballing that open, that his rook is now very active and a direct threat. That was why we saw this move, bishop e6.
Yeah, removing that loose piece and also shoring up lots of possible threats on f7.
Right, defending against them. And then we saw this move, knight takes e7.
Regaining the pawn, as if that matters in this position.
But isn't it remarkable that Black's king is, just stuck in the middle of the board, can't castle either side?
Yeah, that's true.
This knight on e7 makes an incredible impression.
No, you don't get a knight on e7 too often.
Takes. We're anticipating queen c5 check, not the only check. But now here's the issue. What should we do with our king? Maurice pointed out one variation where when the queen came over to h5, our king on the h file is suddenly vulnerable. But let's say king h1 in this particular case, and this, well, which capture should we do it with? Either the queen to head over here for h5, or should rook d8 be? Rook d8 is kind of like that in-between move, trying to develop with a tempo against the queen. Maybe that's too double-edged. Not sure about that one either.
I'm looking for some tactics against that, but it seems like you have everything shored up at the moment after rook d8. But yeah, queen takes e5.
That's a very reasonable looking move, but boy, again, with that king in the center.
Play like maybe a move like rook to d. Oh, I wanted to maybe play rook d1.
Rook to d1. I always looking at attacking moves first, hitting the queen, rook to d1.
Well, now I'm trying to find something like knight g6, knight c6, and get a little romantic checkmate in.
Oh yeah. Oh sure. that thanks to the bishop on h4.
Yeah,
but I was thinking
it's funny that Maurice said 22nd century chess, where I was thinking romantic chess.
You're thinking 19th century. He's thinking 23rd century. Got it. But then after queen h5, who's attacking whom? This is really wild. The knight is it looks great in some ways, but it's kind of trapped. I mean, you mentioned knight g6.
I could say knight g6, but then that opens the,
That's
matter.
A good move.
Doesn't matter.
That's a good move because it does protect the bishop, and looky, there's a checkmate.
Because the rook on f1 also guards all those potential escape squares on the f-file.
Right, so that captures, we still allow that checkmate that Paul Morphy made so very famous in the 19th century. Black's king cannot go to f7 thanks to the rook, and he can't take the rook or move here because even though the bishop is pinned, in an absolute pin, it's still on the board and it defends the rook.
And with Morphy, you bring up a very important first chapter of American chess history, and here we are today making American chess history at the Sinquefield Cup.
And yes, and a lot of people don't know this, that here we live in the modern age of the celebrity superstar, but back in the 1850s, it's widely recognized that Paul Morphy was the first global celebrity. He came from New Orleans. He was a very young man. He went to Europe, played blindfold simultaneouses, and had the most meteoric career of virtually any chess player in the world, and was celebrated and renowned the world over.
Just an American genius. I know that
from New Orleans.
One of our Alexander Onashuk, one of the top players in the U.S., says that he absolutely loves Morphy's games.
Oh, sure.
Would love to go back in time and play him a match.
Exactly. If you ever were going to invite somebody to dinner, Paul Morphy would be on my wish list. Absolutely. So, as we're trying to decipher what's going on in this position, I'm going to have to again refer to...
We got to move, don't we? We've got king h1 and the move rook d8 looks... Oh, we've got a couple... Rook d8 was played.
Okay, so we'll go back.
You looked at that briefly. You thought after
Queen c5 check. Oh, no, he didn't play
queen c5 check.
He went queen b6
yeah.
check. All right. Queen b6 check to White's king. Well, the difference here is that the queen on c5 is no longer going to spin across over here to h5.
But it provides extra support to d8, which, as we saw in all those checkmating variations, was a critical square.
Exactly. Rook d8 with the tempo against white's queen. And now this very sly queen d2 to e1.
Ooh, that could come into g3.
Yes, indeed.
And then the knight on e7 shows another point, stopping things like rook to g8, which would defend
the bishop.
And attack. Yeah.
Right. So now that things have clarified a great deal, I'm going to refer to Maurice and say, Maurice, please tell us what Houdini and the greatest chess engines in the world are making of this position.
Indeed, this is an ideal position for the chess engines to sink their teeth into and keep analyzing at billions of positions per minute. The fact that they can look at so many variations and sift through all the junk is an incredible tool for us as chess players, and certainly we use it as grandmasters. There was a time when grandmasters would have rejected out of hand any suggestion about computers. Those days are long dead, particularly when IBM's Deep Blue defeated our illustrious champion, Garry Kasparov. So using it as a tool, in this moment, knight takes b3 was given as the correct move. And here, the computer actually liked rook takes b3. It didn't mind this position at all, feeling that, in fact, this bishop holds up black's position. This bishop is guarding the f7 square, the d5 square, the f5 square. So it wasn't worried about any move, which we might say, oh, I'm just losing an exchange, aren't I? Here with bishop takes e6, it thought, no problem, just take back and let black stew in this position with the knight preventing the king from castling. Moves like queen f4 about to happen. This pawn actually being a dangerous one to take because of rook to e1 in some position. So it thought rook takes b3 was the best move here. Instead, Gata played c takes b3 after knight takes c takes b3 here. And now queen b6 check, not too pleased about. Thought queen c5 check was still the correct move in this position. And after that, there was a crazy line here, by the way. Queen c5 check instead of queen b6 check. King h1. And if rook to d8, here's something you might not like to see. Queen takes d8 check, sacrificing the queen. King takes, very flashy looking line. You're wondering, where's the discovery? Why would you do this? Well, knight f5 check, and suddenly you have to be careful where you put your king. If you go here, then knight takes on g7 with check, and suddenly if you go here, then bam, that horse has been hopping around and just stole your queen. So knight to f5 check, the best move is just to walk into the pin on the other side. And after this position, Yaz, suddenly the position has simplified. When you look, it's actually material even, except for what's going to happen is just a trade of queen for rook, and this position is actually dead equal. So Nakamura could have gone for this line. Instead, after c takes b3, he played the move queen b6 check, which the engine doesn't like, and now king to h1, rook d8, and it's thinking now after queen e1, the queen should have been more involved on the c5 square, but now on b6 is a little more offside, and it likes white's chances here. White is ready to play queen g3. You have to start defending this position. Does black, and the material is even, by the way, with the salient feature, dude in the middle. Comes back to the same thing we tell our students. Get your king out of there. Don't be in the middle of the board. It's not so easy for the black king to figure out exactly what to do. So Nakamura with a very challenging position, and we can see his face right now, his expression saying, I don't like this. Going for a win, and I might even lose. So a challenge to Nakamura here in this last round of the Sinquefield Cup. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Wow, I like to see this HD quality video here with Nakamura's faces. You actually get to see his eyelash movement.
Right, very expressive. Boy, after all of those variations, Jen, I don't know about you, but my brain hurts.
Well, I love the one with queen takes d8 because I was trying to make that work and I didn't see a great discovery, but that knight f5 with the knight d7, knight e6 idea.
That's a beauty, huh?
And that's the kind of thing that Nakamura was seeing. Wow. And what caused him to probably play queen b6 instead.
I know, but now what Maurice makes it so clear that when the queen was on c5, black's queen was much, much more involved, and that e5 pawn, capturing that e5 pawn and potentially going over to the h file to get play against white's king, that was probably key. Remember when he played the move bishop takes b2 to gain material advantage in order to justify his strategic difficulties. Well, at this moment, he still has those same strategic difficulties, but he doesn't have the material, the extra pawn in his pocket, so to speak. So definitely Hikaru under pressure. Let's go to our marquee game on table 1 between Magnus Carlsen, number 1, Levon Aronian, number 2. This game at the moment is determining first place. When we left the situation, we had just seen the move rook on a1 to a2, keeping a protective eye on this pawn on a5, as well as protecting the bishop on b2. The game continued with the trade of bishops. Rook takes b2. Bishop takes b2, rook takes b2, knight e8. Okay, so we understand that what Levon is saying is this knight on c4 is really strong. I want to trade a pair of knights to decrease the pressure against the pawn on e5. By the way, keep an eye on this pawn on a5. That one's vulnerable as well.
Right, Magnus played that earlier in the game to try to lock the a6 pawn, but it could also come back to haunt him.
Precisely. He went rook b2 to a2, covering up his pawn. We have seen thereafter knight e8 to d6. Please, says Black, would you please trade knights and straighten out my pawn structure?
And allow me to double rooks on the c-file as well one day.
Which would be a big strategic advantage
then it would look like a Sicilian, like a Sicilian with a6, b5, and b4.
And a very good Sicilian for Black. Nothing doing, says Magnus. He dropped back with his knight on d2 to protect his knight on c4, keeping that knight firmly entrenched. But now I'm looking, Jen, after this move, knight d2, let me just highlight these two very nice squares, c3 and d4. These make very attractive outposts. Not that this is Black's best move or anything like that, but look at that knight, Jen. Once that knight comes to the c3 square, followed by the other knight, it looks like Black has got great outposts for his knights on c3, d4. I don't know, but I'm just kind of feeling a little bit here that it's actually Aronian who's carrying the battle.
And definitely on the clock as well. So the Sinquefield Cup far from over. We've mentioned many times in this broadcast that we've had incredible chess guests, journalists, grandmasters from all over the world and the United States. One special guest, we have Frank Guadalupe, who is the acting director of the United States Chess Federation. He stepped in at a time of great need for the USCF, and he's already been doing some pretty cool things. He is here with Grandmaster Maurice Ashley.
Thanks, Jen, with Acting Executive Director Frank Guadalupe of the U.S. Chess Federation. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, Frank, this is an incredible tournament. The USCF must be so proud to have these kind of events taking place on American soil.
Oh, absolutely. And we're very thankful, of course, to Rex and Jeannie Sinquefield for hosting or inviting these players here in the St. Louis Chess Club. It is a tremendous event, and it promotes chess. And obviously, that's what the USCF is all about. We're very thankful for them, and I've been here many times before. I was here at the 2010 U.S. Championship as an arbiter. This year as the chief arbiter of the U.S. Championship. I came some time ago to measure that giant chess piece, the largest in the world, and I certified the measurement of that. So it is exciting to be here. I am just thrilled to see the big chess movement that Rex and Jeannie and the folks at St. Louis Chess Club have generated for everybody.
Indeed, and their mission as well of using chess as a tool to help kids in the scholastic arena, that certainly jives well with your mission as the USCF.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Now, not only to our mission, but also on a personal level. As you know, Maurice, I was the chief tournament director of Super Nationals, the largest scholastic chess event ever, over 5,000 kids. So I feel pretty good about what they're doing here, about all the chess promotion and the development of chess here. And to me, it's incredible. I walk out in the sidewalks there, people playing chess. I go next door to Lester's, a sports bar. Okay, yesterday, instead of Alabama versus Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel, the Heisman Trophy winner, or today Manning versus Manning, Denver versus the Giants, all you see is chess and the monitors, and that is amazing to me. I'm really excited about that.
As a New York Giant fan myself, I find it pretty incredible.
Yes.
What are the future plans for the U.S. Chess Federation?
Well, hopefully we will use events like this to further promote to our membership. Hopefully we will have not just in the St. Louis area, but all over the U.S. and the world, really, people watching this. And we'll continue promoting. We just came out with a promotion in the USCF to try to get back members players whose membership expired over 2 years ago, and say, hey, check us out, come back to us. And that just started. That runs for 64 days. So I'm very excited about that. I'm really honored and excited to be part of this, that they asked me to, take the helm for a few months until we hire a permanent director there. And this is my life. I love chess. I always follow it. In 2 weeks, I'll be going to Tallinn, Estonia, for the FIDE Congress, the World Chess Federation Congress. And I know that in there, my friends throughout the world will be talking about this event.
Indeed. So. We wish great things for the USCF. We also know that there's some new fans that are going to come to chess because of an event like this. What would you tell them, and how do they join your organization?
Well, it's easy to join. All they have to do is go to uschess.org, and there is a link there to join the federation. That's number one. And number two is I will tell the young folks, especially out there, that chess is all about promoting the mind. Okay, I am biased because I got a couple sons who play chess. I have one who is a master, and I was very fortunate. He got a chess scholarship to study electrical engineering. So I feel that not only I have received benefits from chess personally, but I think that anybody can out there. So it is a tremendous game. I love it. I didn't know how to play chess till I was in college. And in the States, I was in Puerto Rico. In the States, they had the Fisher boom back in 1972. Well, in 1968, when I was in Puerto Rico, we had the Kaplan move. And I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but
Julio Kaplan?
Julito Kaplan, that's correct. The world junior champion in 1967. So that's when
I wasn't around. I was a little kid. I was one, actually. Maybe not even one yet, but I do remember the name, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. He's a software engineer. I think he lives in California now. And obviously not playing chess. Stopped playing chess many years ago. But back then, when I was a teenager, we all talk about Julito Kaplan, because he had won the world junior champion. And I see these players here, amazing. World number 1, number 2, and the U.S. number 1, number 2. And I just think and hope what would happen if one of our young players, right now our best bet, of course, is Hikaru Nakamura. But what if our young players become the world champion? I think it'll be amazing, not just for the USCF, chess in general, but for our young generation. So, yes. And
it's what it's all about. Well, thank you so much, Frank Guadalupe, for everything you have done for chess in the U.S. and continued success with the U.S. Chess Federation.
Thank you, Maurice.
Gentlemen, as we know him, Frank Guadalupe, the U.S. Chess Federation, you want to become a member, uschess.org. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Thank you, Maurice. And Frank Guadalupe, also the zonal president.
Absolutely. And just again, for those of you who may not be aware of how the organized world of chess works in the United States, the United States Federation has a host of programs, not only in terms of who's going to be invited to the men's, women's, junior championships, holding those Scholastic championships. We have the Olympic teams, the world teams that all of these programs are supported by the USCF. There's chess in prisons, chess philately, chess scholarships. The list just goes on and
Lots
on.
of cool
There's a
stuff.
lot
And it
of
just
things that
occurred
the
to me,
USCF does. Yes.
What a major year 2013 is. We had the biggest chess tournament in history at the
In
Super
Nashville,
Nationals, and now we
right.
have the strongest. So 2013
Right.
could be just a absolutely landmark year for chess, the strongest, the biggest. Let's
Breakthrough.
keep going.
Absolutely. And as Frank said, I mean, he's the personal recipient from his sons benefiting from chess, but really it is the mission of the USCF to bring chess to every home in the United States.
So go ahead and join and check out uschess.org/CLO too. I'm the editor of that, and we've got a lot of cool features. Greg, actually, my brother, just wrote an article about his top 5 tips for chess players going back to school. We're going to have an article from Grandmaster Ian Rogers on this tournament as well.
Lovely.
And one more thing, Frank Guadalupe stepped in when the USCF needed an executive director immediately, but actually a personal friend of mine, Gene Hoffman, is going to take over that position in November.
Oh, good. Okay, I was wondering who was going to become the permanent executive. Well, you'll have to update me on Jean, and haven't heard of her, but I'm sure she's going to come with new energy and vitality for a key position
very young,
in U.S. chess.
Young and great educational record, and has done a lot for kids in chess, including co-founding 9 Queens. Now, we do have, and there's an announcement on the U.S. Chess website as well about that. Okay. Now, it does look like we're getting a ton of moves in our Kamsky Nakamura game, so let's go right back to that.
All right.
The action is been
thick
incredibly hot. I mean, you couldn't really expect more from this battle. I mean, I love the Sicilian. It's my favorite opening.
Mm-hmm.
I used to play in tournaments and be sad when I didn't get. I wanted to just play every round the Sicilian.
And you didn't always get your wish, right?
Sometimes I went a whole tournament without getting a Sicilian. But here we have one of the most exciting ones, and it looks like Nakamura's king ended up on D7.
Well, let's see how that happened. Okay, when we left it, we had seen this very sly move, Queen E1, that we were all intimidated by. This queen on E1 could potentially go to G3 with that tempo against the bishop on G7. Hikaru's move, Rook D4, was both offensive as well as defensive. Hikaru is in a position now, in case of Queen G3, to switch his rook across to G4, not only protecting the bishop on G7, but also attacking White's queen. That wasn't what Gata had in mind. Instead, Gata played bishop F6, so that his bishop would no longer be under fire by that rook. And after this trade of bishops, bishop takes F6, E takes F6.
That's one heck of a knight outpost.
Yeah, well, exactly. That knight is now firmly anchored, and basically with this knight on E7, it basically says no way, just simply no way are you going kingside after
so
this
that's
recapture.
why Nakamura decided to try to play king to D7.
Exactly, because you're making a virtue out of necessity. He had to go to D7.
Right, rook on D4 at least is blocking, plugging the D file, so his king's not in a major immediate danger, but rook D1 on the board.
Challenging the D file looks like the most natural move I can think of in the position, and this is a kind of a tricky little move. Rook to D8, X-raying a potential defense, and basically what Hikaru is saying is, if I'm going to survive White's onslaught, I'm going to do it by holding down the D file. So he has played the move rook on H8 to D8, and how to evaluate the position, dare I say, who knows?
Well, you wonder, where is that black king going to go? Is it going to slide back to E8? Because that would allow...
after Queen E5, right?
Oh, Queen E5 has been played.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying after Queen
D5.
Well, I was just saying, if you were going to touch the rook on a D4 with the move Queen E5, the idea was to prevent any ideas of the king sliding to the queen side. And you're absolutely right. The move King back to E8 would be forced. You get to the black king.
Move back to G3.
Right.
Allowing rook D1, and then after queen to G8 check, king D7, rook takes D1 check, but I'm not even sure how
Jen,
that...
You're too clever for your own good. I'm going to have to talk to your daddy. Rook takes, and you would be winning. That is correct.
Yeah, because you can't continue to guard the D8 rook, king C7, queen takes D8.
Precisely. Mate. And however, after all of this, instead of playing rook takes D1, once again, you have that really clever rook G4 sliding across and protecting that G8 square. And again, it looks to me like there's no immediate kill. I don't see it.
Well, an incredible defensive conception here by Nakamura.
Well, he has to pull out all the stops, not only to save the game, but he's still trying to win the tournament, right? I mean, and what is the time? I'm sorry.
And yeah, I mean, of course it's unlikely, but even a draw could put him into that three-way tie for first.
Only if Levon wins.
Right, exactly.
And we're about to come back to that game because Levon, it looks like, avoided a repetition.
Ah, good Levon, yes.
We're going to find out how...
And we have clock issues on both games. Nakamura only with 15 minutes, and Carlsen with less than 20 minutes. So both Kamsky and Aronian with massive time edges in these games. And we've got something from Grandmaster Ashley on how this exciting final round of the Sinquefield Cup is shaping up.
Very exciting indeed, Jen. If you remember earlier in the year, Carlsen, in his bid to play Anand for the World Championship, entered the last round needing to win a game or at least draw in order to play Anand. In that game, disaster struck and he actually lost. But thanks to his nearest rival, Vladimir Kramnik, also losing, he was able to essentially back in to the World Championship match. Not very impressive was the rest of the world looking at that kind of performance by the clear number one player in the world. Well, here, he's won 11 tournaments out of the last 17, as you've mentioned. Imagine winning 11 out of the last 17 Grand Slam tennis events or golf events. That's simply unheard of. So there's no doubt about his ability to be a front runner, his ability to dominate the competition. But people are starting to look for chinks in the armor. And that loss he had in that tournament made people wonder, is he really ready to take over the entire world, the entire planet, and particularly the World Championship? Well, here in this game, he's not showing it. Aronian is pressing him with the black pieces, doing exactly what he said, equalizing out the opening, and now massaging this advantage. And you see, after the move knight to d6, knight bd2, he played this move, knight back to b7, did Aronian, and after the move knight to f3, he came up with a fine maneuver, bringing his king into the game. We know the king belongs in the center of the board in the end game because it's not going to be checkmated in any way, and Carlsen decided to do the same thing, and now king f6, shoring up this weakness and getting ready to pluck this pawn off the board. Carlsen played the move rook a4, eyeballing a weakness of his own on the b4 square, but now it's really black for choice here. And Yaz, a maneuver you mentioned earlier, I just love. Putting the knight back on d6 is playable, and then after this move, why the heck not? Knight to b5, threatening to come into c3. And by the way, there could also be some pawn demonstration on this side with g5, h4, trying to play on two sides of the board. You've got to love black here. For black, only two results: win the game or draw. Carlsen, only two results: draw or lose. There's no real winning chances for him in this position. He's just trying to be stoic and solid so as not to lose and end up blowing the tournament lead and being forced to play a playoffs, or even worse, if Nakamura pulls a rabbit out of the hat and wins, suddenly Carlsen would find himself completely out of first and staring up at Nakamura as the champion of the Sinquefield Cup. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Wow, what drama we're having here in this final round, Jen. World number one, world number two, doesn't get any better than that. Playing for the championship, and Magnus in a little trouble. And in fact, at the moment, Levon just went over to the queen side and clipped a pawn. He has played knight captures a5. Let's bring that up on our board for a moment as Magnus Carlsen, for the first time in the tournament, behind material. And let's see what had happened. I did like that positional maneuver that Maurice had mentioned, bringing the knight to c3. Instead, Levon said, hey, give me your pawns, baby. Knight on b7 captures a5. What Levon is hoping is that this rook on c5 is going to put pressure on this pawn on c2. So he was hoping that Magnus would try to win his pawn back immediately with a trades, knight coming back, rook takes a6, rook takes c2, and black's a pawn to the good, and with a better position and attack.
Right, with that beautiful rook and the king well poised, everything looking in black's favor here.
Exactly, a great harmony in black's camp. So Magnus didn't want anything to do with that variation. So Magnus pulled his knight back and said, okay, let me try to do some action of my own. Maybe I look for an opportunity of playing knight g4 check and capturing this pawn in the near future. I just don't see this as being sufficient for real compensation. I see this as a position that Magnus is trying to hold.
Right, trying to hold on to like ideas like knight d4, because knight d4 is a hassle.
Right.
And rook a1 could sometimes come back into the position now that e3 is protected. So just
to show what, I put on the board what you were just saying, that in case of knight d4, knight g4 check is more than a hassle. You force the king to step back, and white would capture this pawn. At the moment, this knight on a5 doesn't really allow you to do any real action down here on the c2 square.
Now we're getting lots of exciting developments in Kamsky-Nakamura, so
Still.
we are going to be right back for more on that. Stay tuned to the Sinquefield Cup here in St. Louis as our final round leaves all three tournament players that we thought earlier. Any of these guys could win. It could be Nakamura, Carlsen, or Aronian. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Action ahead.
And we have a result in our final round of the Sinquefield Cup, which makes the most exciting finale possible. The game between Kamsky and Nakamura was drawn, and that means that we could have a three-way playoff for first place.
But only if Aronian wins. Otherwise, Magnus is in the driver's seat. He's got the lead at the moment.
That's right, and we had a quite wild game, and it's exciting that we have Gata Kamsky here with Maurice Ashley to talk about this tactic fest.
Thanks, Jen. With U.S. champion Gata Kamsky after his last round draw against Hikaru Nakamura. Gata, that was a wild game. We were analyzing it. We couldn't even analyze it ourselves, honestly. We had to go to the engines, and it looked like you had a great attack, but the engines were saying, no, black was always okay. What were your thoughts during the game?
Well, I didn't expect this line from him, and then I came up with the bishop c4 over the board, just intuition. And I was pretty happy with my position. I castled, black had some weaknesses, and, I thought I was better. And then I saw this idea to sacrifice the pawn, but then go for the attack and, put all my pieces there. And it looked like really good, but, that's why Hikaru's Hikaru, he excels in positions like this. And I just thought, okay, keep sacrificing, keep attacking, because at some point maybe I'll get a draw. Well, I got really excited at the moment where I played Queen e1, because I thought my knight sort of cuts off this position. Yeah, I thought I had an advantage here, because my knight is so strong, and I have this idea of bishop f6, and his piece on the king side are kind of stuck. And then all I have to do is take control of the d line, and then I'm quite okay. So when he played rook d4, right, my main idea was to play rook d1 first, just to exchange the active rook, and then keep the knight going to f5 possibly. So the line was he takes on d1, queen d1, bishop e5, knight f5, and bishop f5, rook f5, f6. And I thought,
all right, let me switch over to another feed so we can take a look at those lines.
Right.
For those who won't follow as easily.
Right.
So here you were saying rook d1.
Rook d1, right.
New variation.
Okay.
Excuse me. All right. And you were saying the main line was?
Right. And I was saying the main line was take on d1, queen d1, and bishop e5, and knight f5. And it still looks equal.
Engine is still saying equal no matter what you do. You played, Yasser Seirawan was saying off camera that you played really aggressive chess this tournament. You're known as a very solid player, that you nuance positions, massage people, but this tournament you seem to play really exciting, entertaining, aggressive chess, and yet you were somewhat unrewarded for all that effort.
Well, I'm not sure about massaging chess, but really funny. I like that. That was amazing. Well, okay, but I felt this tournament is where we can play for the fans, and I don't have to play for the result, and I can just go and play interesting chess, which in my case is playing aggressive attacking chess. So in the first round against Magnus, I played this wild h5 move, and it was really crazy. And then some other game also had like this aggressive notions, but these guys, they're so young and they're accurate. They see everything. They like computers. So, and you see what the computer does. In any position, he shows like 0, 0, 0, and they find all these moves. And sometimes the aggression doesn't pay off. So, okay. But it was interesting. I like this event, and I have to say thank you to the organizers. It was amazing. And it was a privilege to play here, of course. And it was fun.
Well, St. Louis has been very kind to you. You've won a few championships here in St. Louis. This one may not be your best event, but I'm sure you'll be back to play again.
Absolutely, Maurice.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for joining us. U.S. champion Gadakomsky, he righted the ship at the end, didn't lose any more games after a couple of losses in the beginning. So tough chess. We congratulate him. And back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Well, again, I just have to repeat myself. I just feel very, very strongly about this, that Gada really pressed in so many of his games. He was on the attack. And man, talk about coming up empty-handed. It's really unjust. And I just want to point out that in this position in the game today between Gada as white and Hikaru as black, Hikaru had to find this very awkward, difficult move, rook d8, to prevent what was a winning threat in the position, queen e5. And then what we saw was this repetition. For those of you who missed that, it was a forced repetition, and Hikaru's dreams of determining his own destiny in terms
now
of
he's got to count
winning.
on Levon.
Now he's, yes, fingers crossed, go Levon.
And let's pull up that Carlsen game just for a second when we get Nakamura set up for his post-game interview here. And while you do that, I'll just repeat a funny tweet from a strong chess master from Maryland, Alex Barnett. He tweeted that Gadakomsky is the most legit chess player. The dude is a Russian OG, but he still chills so hard.
Whoa, I'm not sure I know what all that means. I mean, I feel like a dinosaur. I'm gonna have to learn street or social street, whatever.
So here we go, and we actually had a couple of really thrilling moves in this game as well.
Okay, just to back
after
up
the
a
move
bit.
Knight E3.
Let's go back up a bit.
So have you refreshed this board yet?
Yes, I did. I just brought it up, so it's quite refreshed. We did see this capture. Knight takes A5.
It hasn't copied over yet. Maybe you want to try one more time.
Okay, let me close and copy it over. So we have one game remaining in this inaugural event, the Sinquefield Cup, and all the marbles on the table right here for this matchup. So we had this position. We saw the move Knight takes A5 as well as Knight E3. They got to this position and H5 was played to prevent this Knight G4 ideas. Oops.
Right.
I got the wrong
So Knight G4,
arrow.
preventing Knight G4, and now...
And then the rook slid over. So now that freezes the knight on A5 because the pawn on A6 will always hang in case of a retreat.
And now he played the fun move, rook to D4, sacrificing the exchange.
And I don't think that exchange could be captured. Knight retreated to E1. Holy cow. King E7. Okay, we're going to have to...
And we'll take a look at why that rook couldn't be captured in a minute, too. But first, let's go to Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura, who is with Maurice Ashley.
Indeed, Jen, the #1 player in the United States, #5 player in the world, Hikaru Nakamura, after a draw with Garakamsky. Hikaru, we know you wanted to win this game. You played a tremendously crazy opening line. It was wild. It was interesting chess. And even in this moment, you play this move, bishop takes B2. What were you thinking at the board when this position arose?
Well, actually, I didn't see any other moves. That's more, that's the better explanation of why I played it, because frankly, I thought if I didn't take the pawn, I was just going to get crushed in the center. I was way behind in development. My king was stuck in the center, so it just made a lot of sense to me to play the move. Really, normally I would prefer not to play this sort of position or this sort of game, but considering the circumstances of, I had to at least try to tie for first, so it certainly was the sort of position I wanted considering the game. But then after that, I actually think that Gata, I wouldn't say he outplayed me, but he outcalculated me, because in fact, at one point in the game, I thought I was actually much better, but I missed this very, very creative tactic that I'm almost certain Gata would have played.
Which position was this?
This was in the position after. I thought E5 was strange on move 20 for stars. I thought if he had gone, I actually was much more concerned with F5. I thought F5 was, and then bishop H4 was also very, very unclear. I think there's play for both sides. So. But it was right around here. I miscalculated this whole resulting line. So after bishop e6, knight e7 on move 24. So knight c5. So takes, bishop e6, knight takes, c takes. Yeah, c takes is critical, that's right. Yeah, actually, I missed this whole idea because I thought that no matter how he took, I could go queen c5 check, king h1, and I could play this move rook d8. The point being that if you go queen e1 here, now I think after queen e1 I go rook d4, and the position's much different because of bishop f6 here. I can take queen h5 check, king g1, and now I have rook h4. Whereas in the game you'll see my queen is on b6, so I never have these ideas of transferring everything to the h file. But the problem is after rook d8, white can go queen takes d8. I completely missed this concept, because this is the whole point of c takes b3, is it opens up the c file.
We did see this line in the game, of course, with the help of Houdini 3.
Right, I think it's just winning for white. Takes, knight f5, king d7.
Houdini 3 actually gives king c7 as the move, saying that this line might be more or less equal for you. If the rook c1, bishop back to f8. And it thinks that you're still in the game, more or less equal position.
Then in fact I made a very bad decision.
You felt that you should have gone for this line to
now
avoid...
seeing the position, yeah, of course I should have gone for this. But it still, of course, should be, I don't know, maybe knight d6 here or something. It should be, yeah, probably knight d6 in this position. It should be, completely equal. But still, it makes a little bit more sense in the game. Because in the game, actually, I just end up worse. Like queen e1, rook d4, so move 26. Yeah, like in this, I mean, like here, I suddenly like panicked because I didn't see a good idea, but luckily I was able to. Well, originally I wanted to go bishop f8. Actually, that was my, or not bishop f8. I wanted to go rook d7. Sorry, instead of rook d4, I wanted to go rook d7.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I wanted to go this rook d7, but the problem here is there's this very strong move queen g3, and now I think I can more or less resign because I mean I'm going to lose some material here. So rook d4 is the only try. I mean, to try and activate. I mean, because basically here the drawback is my king is not. I mean, my king is in the center, so it's quite open. But at the same time, the knight on e7, it's preventing my king from getting to safety, but also it has no squares either. So it's a matter of, I mean, trying to take advantage of the center and not get mated. And if I can survive to an endgame, then I'm probably going to end up better and have chances to win. So that's why I played rook d4, then bishop f6. I mean, all of this is very forcing. Perhaps at the end I could have tried queen d6 instead of king e8, but it's still, you can take on d4 and go rook f3, and I thought this was a repetition also. And at that point, I mean, I was happy with the draw.
Well, the draw does give you a tie for first right now at the moment, and Carlsen in his game is under some pressure against Levon, although it's kind of looking more and more equal. Levon was pressing the whole time. He's up a pawn right now. What's your opinion of this position?
Looks very drawish to me, actually. I mean, at first glance, black is double e pawns. I don't really see. I mean, if black could get that a6 pawn to a5 and with the knight on another square, I think Levon would have good chances to win as black. But I mean, to me, this looks very drawish. I don't really see many ideas for either side.
Did you keep your eye on this game while you were playing your game, or was it just enough dealing with the pressure?
Yeah, I would have liked to have paid it some attention at least, but considering how quickly my game was out of control, I didn't really have much of a chance to look at the other game. But nevertheless, I mean, I was just focused on trying to play well. And okay, it's I don't know whether I played well or badly, but still, it's a good result.
Well, mathematical chance of still tying for first, at least clear someplace in second at least in this tournament. What are your thoughts about the organization of the tournament and the event itself?
I mean, it's very well organized. I mean, across the board, I think with everything, with what Rex and Jeannie Sinquefield have done, not just for this tournament, for the club in general, and in St. Louis too, it's great. Also, I have to say, this is probably the first time I've ever been to a tournament anywhere. I mean, even in the U.S., where when I was walking here yesterday and the day before, and even today for that matter, there were some people who were cheering and clapping as I entered the club, and I think that speaks a lot to the enthusiasm of the fans and the people in America. And it was really a great feeling to know that there was so much support for me. It's just too bad that I couldn't quite win it for them.
Well, with your style, we expect great things in the future, and congratulations on a fine tournament, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
U.S. number 1 and number 5 in the world, Hikaru Nakamura. A great result for him. We'll see great things in the future. Back to you, Jen and Yas.
No doubt, and it's not quite over yet. There's still that possibility of Levon winning, and then Nakamura will be tied for first.
Exactly, and then we would have the
playoff.
Massive playoff.
Three-way playoff.
Wow, and again, I just have to say personal comments that I found Hikaru's play here to be scintillating,
very inspiring,
to be entertaining, and really making this event his fearlessness at the chessboard and his desire to mix it up and cause chaotic positions really puts the pressure on his colleagues at all times, and really just hat tip to him for making our lives so much easier. I mean, for us to bring you a good broadcast show, we need the players' cooperation, and that means fighting chess, and Hikaru brings that each and every day. And I just have to thank him.
I mean, if his openings get even a little bit more precise, I mean, just amazing things. Because he did have a couple of struggles in the opening, both today and yesterday.
That's right.
Not getting much with white yesterday, and then today, obviously, being in some trouble, but still managing to
hold it all together. Which
is incredible. And it's funny, that line with bishop f8, it's very difficult. But as soon as he saw that move, he was like, I guess I should have gone for that. But that kind of backward bishop move at the end of a long variation.
That's right.
when you think when you're looking at it that there could have been something else as well.
Yeah.
You can totally understand why he went for a line that made it harder on himself, but he managed to draw anyway.
Well, I just like that really beautifully precise rook on h8 to d8 move. That really shows his class. Speaking of class, we have two world-class players, first and second in the world, playing for all the marbles here on board one. Let me just refresh the times, bring the game into our viewer board for a moment. Sorry, that was the wrong one. I'll click the other button.
So now Levon really has to play for the win because he's actually, if he draws this game, he also doesn't, he just gets third place.
Right.
Which kind of, it doesn't really reflect the kind of like drama of this last round battle, but
Exactly.
he'll just get that $30K third prize. So he's actually playing for a possible $40,000 swing here.
Right.
If he manages to win.
If he manages to win, he would share. No.
Well,
yes.
They would have a playoff.
Right.
So a possible $40,000 swing, which is pretty huge.
Right.
And
yes,
the
he could
Sinquefield
win.
Cup and the prestige.
Precisely. Gotcha. So we've had a couple of moves, and let's try to decipher them for our audience for a moment. We had this position. Rook E1, A1 was Magnus's move, trying to keep black bottled up here on the queen side and tying black's forces to the defense of the knight on A5. Levon tried to mix things up with this move, rook d4. This rook simply cannot be captured because after a move like knight takes d4, and I just have to give that move a simple question mark or maybe a very big question mark. After recaptures, black is for choice in numerous ways. I think white's queen side is dropping. For example, if the knight had to come back, then with this move d3 captures, knight captures, black's queen side pawns are really deadly here in this position, not to mention that the rook on a1 is hanging as well.
So Carlsen didn't even really consider this, but still a nice little sacrificial idea that you see from time to time when you have this like beautiful square.
Right.
You want to put a knight on it? Well, you better check out the rook as well.
Right. Tigran Petrosian, legendary world champion, made a comfortable living sacrificing exchanges.
Well, right, and of course an inspiration to Levon.
Exactly.
Being the Armenian world champion.
So after knight e1, I didn't get a chance to look at it, but let me go back. It was exactly at this moment king dropped back to e7. I was wondering why Levon didn't capture the pawn on e4, and I'm still trying to make that determination.
Right, yeah.
Why not? After a move like knight d3 attacking the rook can slide over to b5 square, and I don't quite see
Was he trying to
what issues Levon is facing here. At the moment, he's 2 pawns up. I mean, don't forget, and this rook, although it looks uncomfortable, as soon as it goes to the d4 square...
Maybe knight to b2, followed by knight c4, or c4.
Whoa, c4.
That's a move.
That's
now if pawn takes c3, rook takes c4.
That's dirty.
Wow.
That's just cold.
I like that.
Wow. c2, c4. Let me not give up on this variation quite yet, because it's a very forcing line. The main point of white's move c4 is that if we en passant, we hang our rook on e4, and that's not good. But let's go back for a moment here, and I'm just looking at this crazy line. Knight takes b3, so at the moment, I'm all kinds of pawns up, but I'm hanging a rook. Pawn takes b5, pawn takes b5. Now 2 white rooks are hanging. Let's drop back or go forwards with this rook for a moment and just get this position. What do I have? 3 pawns? 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns for a piece.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting line.
This needs some serious judgment and consideration. I'm not sure what's going on here. Clearly it was rejected by Levon. I'm certain he saw this line, but it's a funky line. I'm gonna refer to Maurice on this one and ask Maurice if the computer gave this consideration or not. Maurice, help me out.
Indeed, Yaz, the computer did give consideration to this line, very wild line, after this rook hanging on the square a4, rook to a6, attacking the knight, trying to use this rook more actively, not wanting to get the rook passive in the corner, as your estimation is quite correct. You don't want to be back here dealing with the pawns. You want to be in here starting to eat stuff and get it off the board. And if knight to b8 is a line the computer gives, now rook to a8, this rook wants to be the active one. It doesn't want to be the passive one back here. So after knight takes a1, rook takes b8, and now you see that the rook is doing all kinds of work from behind in this position. Rooks like to be behind pawns when they attack, so the rook is coming in the back. If you come here with the move like c6, and of course a move like rook to b6 can be played, and the active rook as opposed to the passive rook on a1, with a passive knight sitting actually on a1 instead. And although black has the extra fourth pawn, it looks like he's going to drop another one, and white will be able to start proving the energies with his piece. Now, this line is not entirely clear, especially now after rook to d4, so maybe we need to go back a move. Rook b8 in this position. It still gives this line with rook to d4 as maybe the right way to play, to stay active with its own rook, and saying that white might get an advantage with a move like knight to c5. So this is an interesting line. He could have gone for Levon, but you see it's too crazy. Why do this when you had complete control of the position? No reason at all to go for this line, grabbing this pawn and getting this craziness happening on the board for black. Although, looking at the board now, it's so solid that maybe he doesn't have anything anyway. But I don't think he wanted to lose any control of the position like this line would suggest. So he's just sitting back and saying, let me see if I can grind this kid down with so much time left on the clock without all those forcing variations. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
That's right, and he's got a big time advantage still, but we are reaching the 40th move, 20 minutes for Levon and 7.5 for Magnus. And I do think there was a good reason, though, for him to go for that line, and that's simply the tournament situation. You know, a draw and a loss gives Levon third place and just $30,000.
A draw or a loss is the same result. So it's all or nothing.
That's right.
Is what you're saying.
That's right. So if
he's got to go for it.
Well, I mean, of course, as the number 2 player in the world, I mean, every rating point that he loses is, very could be detrimental to certain, wild cards and all the other important things that he needs for his rating.
Right.
But in terms of the tournament standings, he wants to go for lines that include a lot of wins, even if he might lose more often.
Right. I never really felt it during my career about ratings and things like that in the last round game. I always looked forward to, my dream in each and every tournament I played in is that I hoped that I would be in a situation where I was playing for first place in the last round. I mean, that was what I lived for as a Grandmaster. The moment I secured my Grandmaster title, it was all about winning tournaments. And Bent Larson, most especially, just hammered that home to me. Yasser, you've got to win tournaments. That's what it's all about, winning tournaments.
Wow, I like that attitude. Very nice.
Yeah, and Bent was the fighter, the consummate fighter, and gentleman too, by the way. So we go back.
So who could have dreamed, though, that Levon, after starting this tournament with that horrendous blunder, would be playing for first place in the last round?
Exactly. Well, only Levon. Well, maybe not only Levon, his fans as well. So we saw this position and this retreat, King E7, avoiding that wild line. I hear Maurice very loud and clear. White's rook, an active white rook, really could make the advantage in White's play. But I tell you, 4 pawns for a knight and all of those passed pawns, boy, I would have really looked at that very, very deeply indeed. King E7 was Levon's choice. F2, F3, very solid move by Magnus Carlsen, fortifying a kind of fortress thing. And by the way, White has really tied up these 2 knights on the queen side. The knight on a5 can't move because the pawn on a6 hangs, and the knights are codependents, to quote Rex. After f3, Levon slipped down with rook d2, rook d1. He stepped back. saying, please help me out here, capture my rook and undouble my pawns. Of course, Magnus rejected that, and this is the current position.
Well, we also have one more move from Levon. He did play king to d7 in this position.
And once again, he's showing that he is still playing for the win, because had he played the move rook d2, well, Magnus would have been very grateful.
Oh yes, just grab the Sinquefield Cup.
Absolutely, the 70,000 and Sinquefield Cup, and say.
And his 11th, what is it, 11 out of 17
going
victory?
into this tournament.
That would be quite
12
incredible.
out of 18.
And a nice confidence boost before playing that World Championship match in November.
In Shahade.
Grandmaster Ashley, your thoughts on which way this is going to go?
Yeah, Jen, 12 out of 18, 66% winning percentage in tournaments. Yes, that's something we could only dream of doing as grandmasters. Well, in this position, I think there was a critical moment in the game for Aronian. I myself, unlike you, Yaz, I'm not a pawn grubber. I like active play. And I think there was a moment when Aronian really lost his true chance to build his advantage. It was right here when he took on a5 with his knight. It looked delicious. You're grabbing a pawn, you're going to go up by a pawn and force your opponent on the defensive. But after this nice move, knight to e3, Carlsen said, what's the deal? You're up a pawn, but your piece is frozen on the square, it seems like forever. How are you going to untangle in this position? And we've seen so far that Aronian has been busy trying to untangle, but he simply can't get away without dropping his own a-pawn. So he's taking his time there. What was a good alternative? Well, a maneuver you mentioned, Yaz, and I just got to come back to it. The move knight to d6, trying to put pressure on this knight. And after knight fd2, the move knight to b5. Now that's active piece play. Dropping a knight on c3, pressuring this pawn, putting this rook in a prison over here, having to stay on this side. And it looks like your idea of maybe eventually playing knight to d4. Sorry, let me go back. Playing the move knight to d4. I mean, this looks fantastic. The active knights. Now, maybe there's no obvious way to break through. He still has to deal with making some pawn breaks with the move g5. But this seemed like a very reasonable way to play. And maybe he just saw that that's not enough. And so he grabbed the pawn. Now he's pressing. We have this position currently on the board, and he's played the move king to d7. The one thing I have to say, this is clear, and I hate to let you know this, Jen and Yaz, we're going to be here a while. He's going to play for a while. He's going to make this young man suffer. First, the first time control has to be reached, and then the next time control would have to be reached. He's up a pawn right now. He's going to say, earn this Sinquefield Cup, young man, world number one. I will make you defend and defend and defend, because I now have absolutely no losing chances. You're the only one that can lose. And that cannot be a good feeling for Magnus, having the white pieces and being tortured, and you're the best player on the planet. That can't be cool. And we see him there analyzing the position and dealing with his time pressure. So being made very uncomfortable. And I know there's a guy in India, let's not name him yet. That guy is watching this and saying, oh yeah, show me how you torture this kid. And he will be taking serious notes. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's the great Vishwanathan Anand. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Thank you, Maurice. And yes, indeed, Magnus looking very uncomfortable. He actually just unbuttoned one of his shirts. So one of the buttons on his shirt. I think the female fans across the world
We're thrilled.
are hoping that he gets more uncomfortable in this position.
But
to be fair, I mean, he does win the tournament with a draw. So
of course,
if you're going to get pressured and have to be in this unpleasant situation, it's nice that the stakes are $70K, beautiful tournament win right before your World Championship match. But also, got to go back to the opening. I mean, if he's going to play for the World Championship, he's got to be getting an advantage with white, right? And he can't be happy with this.
Right. He hasn't impressed us with his play with white, and today, you know, he walked into a variation he knew Levon has prepared very well.
So
I mean, this is his bread and butter.
Because he saw that also the game between Nakamura featured this opening, so it's interesting that he didn't have a little more up his sleeve. Maybe Levon surprised him at some moment. Remember that move bishop c5 was a novelty.
That's right.
So perhaps he thought the lines without bishop to c5 were more promising for white.
Right.
And then he just had, was working over the board and things went awry.
Right.
It's interesting also, Anand plays double king pawn stuff as well.
Right.
So we're likely to see this kind of stuff in the World Championship.
Right. Magnus may have thought that he was going to have Levon for lunch, and Aronian thought, well, I'll have you for breakfast. So he got in his novelty before Magnus could get in his, and that's the difference so far and the advantage to Levon. Whether he can make this serious or not, I'm not sure. First of all, Maurice, I think you really did nail it with let's go back and see what Levon may have done differently. Grabbing that a5 pawn, as juicy as it is, maybe it lessened his winning chances. But I'll go back to this position for a moment as well.
And don't forget your messy rook d4 line where with rook b5 and c4. That was another option for must-win scenarios.
Well, I'm thinking that as it turned out in the game, Levon ended up dropping back with his king after playing the move h6, h5. And I'm just wondering if Levon couldn't have improved over the game variation by dropping his king back right away. If we were to have seen this move rook on e1 to a1 in that case, then after rook d4, all of these variations where we end up sacrificing a piece or exchange in those crazy lines, it's a big improvement that the king is actually a little bit closer to the king side, because we did have that move c7, c6, which may now be defended. And it's those nuances, those small little things that often mean the difference between victory and a draw. So I'm thinking that maybe king e7 was a better chance after you've made the decision to capture the pawn on a5. Let's move ahead. Let's rather get to the game position.
Yeah, we do have a move by Carlsen after king to d7.
And see how things are stacking up right now. We have this king to d7 move.
Right, so avoiding the perpetual, of course.
Repetition, yes.
As Maurice pointed out, we're in for a long one because Aronian needs to win this game.
Yes.
He needs to try, obviously.
And he will. Okay, and we do have this move knight e1, which kind of, well, it does significantly demonstrate how these two rooks are putting such intense pressure on White's position that Magnus doesn't seem to have found anything better than going back and forth with his knight. And you know that's not pleasant when you kind of have this helpless feeling of the only thing you can do is move your knight back and forth. What this move also says is, okay, what's your breakthrough? How, as black, are you planning to win this game with this offside knight on a5? And Maurice, I don't know if you have any suggestions for us, has, despite the difficulty Magnus obviously faces, are there any breakthroughs for black?
Well, actually, after knight to d1, so it looks like Carlsen's down to 2 minutes. Could that be right?
No way. I'm sorry. Let me refresh the board, and we'll come to Maurice very shortly. I was just wondering, I didn't see any...
You don't see any ways to kind of break through in this position, is what you're saying, for black.
Right. He's got this fortress, and maybe Maurice has something insightful, as usual.
Well, yeah, as the most insightful thing I can say is, Magnus, you better hurry up. You only have 2 minutes left on the clock, 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Levon has 15 minutes, and he's trying to find anything he can to force this young phenom to think more about the position. Unfortunately, there are no pawn breaks anywhere to be found, and we know that you need pawn breaks in order to open up a game. And the problem, the main problem is he can't untangle these knights. How is he to do it? To move this knight would mean dropping this guy. To move this knight would mean dropping this guy. So how do you do it? Meantime, very solid pawn structure. Remember, he's down a pawn is Carlsen, but the pawn he's down is one of these two ponies right here, right? I mean, that's it. And they're doubled, and they're not going anywhere. So although he's up a pawn, the pawn structure leaves a very bad impression, which is why he needed to have more piece activity than this position. So looking at it closely, as it really looks to all rights like Carlsen is okay, and he will make the draw that he so desperately needs in order to win this tournament. I really don't see how Aronian makes any headway in this position. Back to you guys.
Yeah, no levers, as you like to say, right?
Right.
I mean, G5, G4, only one I can see in the position, but that just looks like it's going to do more harm trading off a bunch of pawns. And right now, those pawns are already held back by black. So really, Aronian would want to be doing something on the side of the board where he has an extra pawn, but
Right.
he's, as you mentioned, those codependent knights are.
Right.
I mean,
That's the hang-up.
These are really bad codependent knights,
Right.
too. Not a functional relationship at all.
Well, let's imagine a line. I see one possibility for Levon. It's a bit of a stretch, so bear with me here, Jen. Imagine king goes back to c8. So the idea of this maneuver, as I'll make clear shortly, is that with the king now on the b6 square, protecting the knight on a5 in case you do nothing, then in this particular variation, I have this opportunity of sacrificing an exchange this way. And the difference is that after you take my rook, I recapture. This knight is adequately defended so that rook takes a5 is not on your agenda.
Even here, something like knight e3 perhaps.
It's necessary, but
And then I was thinking I could maybe play knight c4 here and have the in-between move on the a6 pawn, play rook takes a6. But the nice thing for you is that you do have the pawn that you really wanted to come home with, giving you extra play. So
this b pawn is the danger. You're right.
You don't really want that a pawn as much.
No.
So of course, though, Magnus is not compelled to repeat all of those moves.
Right. Well, I was
So
just showing a
Yeah, no, of
variation
course.
where if Magnus plays passively, there is this long-term plan in the position that from where we currently stand, where this king could make this journey to the b6 square, refortifying the knight and opening up that possibility of sacrificing the exchange, because there's no levers. And so it has to come down to a rook sacrifice, exchange sacrifice. It's possible. Well, by the way, let me just get an update on the game.
Yes, we do have a couple moves in. So
Sure.
rook d2 played and knight to f2. I'd like to remind everyone that 45 minutes after the game is over, if there's no playoff. If there's a playoff, then we'll stick around for that. 45 minutes after the game, there's going to be a press conference and trophy presentation that will be live streamed as well. So stick around for that.
All right. So knight d1, we do have this move. The rook came back to d2. Okay. Interesting decision. And now instead of knight e3, the knight has moved to f2, making the possibility of knight d3, trying to keep this rook snared on the d file. Not sure.
Well,
what
in
is
fact,
the
what
time?
happened was after knight to f2, king c8 was played. Carlsen only with 1 minute left. Of course, there's only 4 moves left in the game, and he's going to get another 2 minutes in 30-second increments.
Okay.
But if Levon can come up with something here that makes Magnus think, then definitely the right time to do it, right?
Now is the time. Okay, so we have seen this king trek all the way to c8.
He's going to overprotect the pawn, just like basically to overprotect the knight rather on a5.
Right.
Which is a Nimzovich concept, which I know you love. As we talked about in the U.S. Championship, you think Nimzovich one of the overrated chess thinkers.
Oh dear. Let's not go there.
We got the head shake. But of course, the concept of overprotection is that when we protect the knight on a5 more, that will then release our other pieces. In this case, the
rook.
possibility of the rook or possibly the knight on c6.
and we do have moves after the move king c8. And check the time again for me, Jen.
38 seconds for Magnus Carlsen.
No way.
So,
Really?
Yes, rook to b5 played. Magnus better make a move fast. Certainly we wouldn't want the Sinquefield Cup being decided by a freeze, a moment of freeze.
Oh my goodness, that would be remarkable.
Don't see that happening by this young athlete and world #1 chess player. Grandmaster Maurice Ashley has got some thoughts on all this.
Indeed, a big opportunity now present for Magnus Carlsen to neutralize Black's advantage. It looks like he can play right now the move knight takes b4. A little bit of a shocker in this position. Knight takes b4, showing the problem of the overprotection of these knights, the codependency, I think you called it once, Yas, or maybe it was Rex Sinquefield's quote. And so in this position now, suddenly there's just no way to keep the connection all in here. So knight takes b4 will be possible, and then rook takes a5. And sadly for us, this could easily peter out into an even position after takes, and now rook takes a6, and the e6 pawn is hanging as well. So he may be able to play this move right now with only a few seconds on his clock. He needs to hurry up. Let's see what he does in the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So a little simplifying possibility here for Magnus Carlsen, and that's what you're looking for when you're in a worse endgame.
Definitely.
You want to look for a way to simplify it so that you don't get ground down, which obviously increases your chances of making a mistake and also allows your opponent to improve their position at their own pace. Now, judging from the board, we're about to get these moves in, but it looks like Magnus didn't play that.
Wow, I thought that was
I don't see that on the board.
I thought that was a fabulous opportunity, as Maurice was pointing out. The knight takes b4.
Instead he played h4. So missing the simplification opportunity with very little time on the clock. King b7 in reply, so continuing along with your plan of king to b6 and fortification. Now, how does this change matters with knight takes b4, though?
I'm not sure. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe the move h3, h4 was useful, and in case we get that variation that Maurice was showing us, where all of these, you had this wholesale exchanges happening. Rook takes, rook
7
takes.
seconds left.
No
for
way.
Magnus Carlsen, it looks like.
Rook
He's
takes.
just about to make a move. Let's see it.
Oh, he's got to be nervous if he's
Or maybe
down
he has
to...
already made a move. We're going to wait for an update here, but this is pretty critical. Obviously, it's not fun if you have to make that kind of simplifying calculation when you are on move 39. You sure wish it was like move 41.
Exactly,
so
that you
would
get
have
those
time to
extra
relax.
time.
And now is the moment, because once king b6 is played, it will no longer be possible.
Precisely.
So,
it's now or never.
So king b7, one more chance for Magnus to go for this line. If he misses it now, Levon will continue to press.
Exactly.
And let's see. It looks like we've got a move in. Yeah, we're looking for what happened. Rook on. It looks like king b7, rook on 1 to a2.
Wow.
So no knight b4.
No knight b4.
And now after the move we predict, king b6.
I guess what Magnus is saying is everybody's mutually tied up. Go ahead and show me. Now, I wanted to put my king on b6 because I was hoping to sacrifice an exchange on c2. Now that this rook has been chased away, is bottled up on the b5 square, maybe Magnus is saying, look, I've got a perfect fortress. You can't...
Because I can't move my knight on d4 so much because the b4 pawn is hanging.
Right. Just to show to the audience what Jennifer means is that if you move your knight, you do give up the pawn on b4.
And then we might get c2 back, but that's not clear at all, no.
No, it's not clear to me either. So
that would,
maybe Magnus has just said, look, I've got the perfect fortress, dude. What are you doing?
And we have seen Magnus find himself in bad positions and create fortresses before, notably against Nakamura in an endgame where Nakamura was pressing on the white side of a c3 Sicilian up a piece, I think. Or,
right.
And Magnus kind of just like solid,
and held
let
the
him
position.
Through.
Held the position. And that's what he's resorted to with this move. Rook on a1 to a2. he has made the time control, by the way, with the move King G1. That is his 40th move.
Now, you mean after what? After
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Rook
Rook
A2 is
A2.
still move 39. It's still one more move for Magnus Carlsen.
So we're expecting
But-
King B6, and I was suggesting the move King G1, and that would be move 40.
Yes. So and then he'll be able to take a breath and think a little bit more calmly about the position and try to make a draw here and capture the first ever Sinquefield Cup.
Wonderful. Drama to the very last moment. Boy, Jen, I must say, too, by the way, not only do I feel privileged, I think everybody does as well, but the players have really made it great for us. I mean, the type of chess that we're seeing here is chess at its finest. And so, again, hat tip to the players for
I'm
making
going to
this
be
such
sad
a...
when this is over, and that's why me, like so many other people watching all over the world, were thrilled when Rex Sinquefield came and did his interview with Maurice Ashley and said, hey, we're planning to do this next year.
Yeah, and maybe even better. I mean, that's what they're always trying to do here at the St. Louis Chess Club, is go from success to success and imagine each and every time how can we make the tournament more dramatic, more exciting for the spectators, for our fans. And next year's event, I think Rex and Tony have been discussing a 6-player double round.
Yeah, it's up in the air, but the idea is Sinquefield Cup is a great idea, and a lot of the credit goes to people who've come out to St. Louis, bought tickets for the event,
of course,
stayed here, because the fact that you might only be one person, but the fact that you do that, 200 other people do that, more than that. I mean, we've had way more than that, but like just the fact that so many people have done that shows the chess club and the organizers that, hey, this was a really good idea.
Right.
So thank you to everyone who listened to us all week, and then especially to people who actually made it out to St. Louis. And
big thanks.
And I actually got a question from one of our listeners later about, Rex Sinquefield does all these great things for chess. What can we do to show Rex and Jeannie that we appreciate their efforts? Well, it's not that hard. Join the chess club. Join the museum.
Right.
Those are the things that they really appreciate, because
and they'd be grateful for.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we have over 1,000 members, and it'd be great to continue to increase that number.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a lot cheaper if you're out of town to get a membership. So even if you only can make it out once or twice a year, it shows your support for chess that you become a member of the St. Louis Chess Club.
And two, one of the things that Tony and I have discussed is the memorabilia. We've got a lot of memorabilia. We've seen all of the players flashing their Sinquefield Cup T-shirts and their jackets for the U.S. Championships, men's, women's, and junior jackets. Or, they've got, and that's all on the store too. So any support in that way would also be appreciated.
Indeed, indeed. And we've got Grandmaster Maurice Ashley with his thoughts.
Indeed, Jen. And I would say, calling all visionaries, take a look at what's happening here, the tremendous support for the club, for chess, the groundswell of fans coming out, so fascinated by the game, wanting to see the world's best players, the U.S. best players, and just chess itself. I know there are members in our audience who could put tournaments like this together. Certainly, they may not have had the practice, but they can give a ring to Tony Rich and Joy Bray and say, how are you guys doing it? Not only do we want to support your initiative there in St. Louis, but in our own cities where we want to put on world-class events, give us some guidance, and we'll do the same. It's clear that the fan base is there, that the chess fans are hungry for great events, great activities, and it's about time, I think, that chess rises to the level of poker. Jed, I know you're a big fan of poker. It's about time we started seeing chess televised, monster events like this, even more prize funds. It seems like chess has finally arrived, and here in St. Louis, they're showing exactly why. Jen and Yas?
That's right.
We need pioneers, don't we? To
definitely
blaze the
think
trail.
it's possible. Definitely possible for chess to become much more mainstream than it is now in this tournament, with it being streamed via Fox Sports Midwest and featured in the big screen every day. this is step one, but this is by no means the end. If you think about what's happened in the past 5 years, you can only imagine what will happen in the next 5. And you all at home are really a part of that. So thank you.
Indeed.
We do have King B6 by Levon, and we expect that Magnus Carlsen has probably made time control. So we'll find out what he played. And now Yasser just predicting a move that does nothing, King G1, but
just waiting,
puts
marking
the onus
time.
on Aronian. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna improve your position? You have a pawn. Congratulations.
Right.
I'm gonna go for the cup.
Exactly. So we're going to go back a move for a moment as Maurice is saying that maybe King B6 was
Oh
not
no,
the
King
move.
B6 was not yet played. Okay.
Yes.
King B6 not yet played. Of course, we have Levon in this pretty
Thinking pose.
Yeah, very nice thinking pose. A bit of a duck face here.
By the way, I like it when he goes into the full frontal lobe with the hands as the Vulcan death grip.
All these players
to his
are.
Forehead.
Another very well-dressed grandmaster. Obviously, Magnus Carlsen sponsored by G-Star Raw, but Levon always looking quite sharp as well. Maybe they're thinking about the Queen's Gala coming up next month in the World Chess Hall of Fame, which is going to be the biggest probably fashion and chess event since that Magnus Carlsen versus the World event that happened in New York a couple of years ago.
That's not so long ago, right? Now tell me more about the gala for a moment.
The gala is in honor of the museum's show on Alexander McQueen and chess and fashion and chess.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of initiatives around the Queen and getting more girls into the game, as we discussed earlier on the show.
Gotcha. All right. Very interesting. Something to look forward to. We seem to have a move. King A7.
So King A7. So we were expecting King B6 to fortify the knight. And as you predicted, Carlsen did mark time King G1, in this case, literally marking the 40th move, which allows him to get up from the board, get a glass of orange juice, and refocus his efforts to hold this game and become the champion here.
Yes, and this is very common that after making the 40th move, players get up from the board and try to refresh their mind. I can't help. It's such a tragic, funny, tragic comedy story. So what happened was in the Grand Slam event, there was Hikaru Nakamura playing his Spanish Grandmaster opponent in the last round, and Hikaru had turned to the arbiter and said, "Have I made move 40?" And the arbiter, not allowed to give any information to the player, didn't speak. But to Hikaru's eyes, he thought he saw a slight nod. Hikaru got up, went to the player's room, poured himself a glass of orange juice, came back to the board, and his Spanish opponent, Francisco Pons, had said, "I'm sorry, you've lost on time." And the point was, with that loss, instead of the expected victory that he had on the chessboard, it was a swing of 30,000 euros. That's a big amount of money. And of course, inquiring minds like myself, of course, went up to Hikaru and asked him, "Well, how did the orange juice taste, Hikaru? Was that really, was it worth $30,000? This had to be the best orange juice in the whole world." And Hikaru had to laugh because what can you say? He felt terrible, of course.
That's a very sad story. And you see a lot of players so paranoid about that possibility that they kind of treat move 41 as if it's move 40.
And I know Victor Korchnoi would sometimes, to be sure that he made the time control, would spank out a 41st or even a 42nd move when he wasn't 100% sure that his score sheet was accurate.
No. Luckily, in the these FIDE tournaments, you actually, when you make your 40th move, you're supposed to see the 30 minutes pop up.
Exactly, and that's where Hikaru made his error in not just checking the clock and seeing that he had gotten that bonus time.
Well, even the best players in the world make mistakes, and in this case, not a mistake on the chessboard.
Right.
But we also see the zero tolerance rule that FIDE puts into effect, and almost every time there's a World Cup, there's some incident. It just seems
it's terrible. It's a terrible.
Just a bad rule, in your opinion.
Yeah, really a bad rule. Anyway,
many bad,
real
Lots
bad.
Lots of question marks in that.
Yeah, real bad. We've got this position. It's looking more and more like a fortress to me, and obviously with his move King F1 G1, Magnus has basically said, look, I'm going to be moving back and forth with my king from here on out. You, Levon, you've got to come up with something really clever to break this idea.
Well, it doesn't seem like anything but your idea of king b6 allows us to untangle. I mean, we're not going to play, because we can't really move the knight on c6 anyway because of the b4 pawn.
Right.
So that knight's totally stuck.
This knight's stuck.
I mean, if I could move that and play c5, that would be the way to go.
Right. This
but
knight's stuck.
How's that not feasible? We can't get our king to c5.
Right. Right. So all, going all across the board, I see these two knights are stuck. The rook on b5 is fine, but also stuck. Nothing's happening on the king side.
Well, also that move h4 shut down given potential possibilities of g5 and d4. Not like that would have ever been good, but just there's it.
Shut it down, just as you said.
Yeah.
So I'm looking. I'd love to see a playoff, only because I'm cruel that way. I like to see the players going to.
Exciting.
It is.
Playoffs are exciting. We love them, but
it looks like Magnus has secured the Sinquefield Cup because I do think he's got a fortress position, Jen.
And we will see Levon continue to rack his brain, though.
Oh, of course.
Something here.
Of course. He'll do his best.
This is his moment to be as creative as possible in trying to squeeze some juice from this position, some orange juice, if you will.
Okay.
And Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, how can he squeeze something out of this?
Unfortunately, Jen, it looks like this is coming out of concentrate, not fresh squeeze. This is not going to happen. The position is so blocked. There are no levers, as we mentioned. You need pawn breaks in chess. And as it stands, he can't reposition his pieces to do anything positive in this position. It's just completely stuck. But I want to show you a different position. We've been talking about Carlsen and his match coming up against Viswanathan Anand, the world champion. They're going to be playing later in November in Chennai, and later this year in Chennai. And this position is a good memory for Carlsen from that matchup. He recently played against Anand at the Tao Memorial back in June, and he got this position where he knows how to play chess. We've seen him here playing very block chess, defensive chess, dare we say a little bit boring for him, right? Because he knows how to win. And he played this great game against Anand with the white pieces. And this position, he played the move e4. Now, that's what we call a lever. Open up the position, get an attack going. And let's show you the effect of this lever after this exchange. Obviously, the pawn was threatening to play the move e5 and fork the queen and knight. He played the move queen to d7 and another lever in the position. Bam, d5, cracking the position open. This is the effect of pawns marching down the board. They bring energy to the position. They wake up the pieces behind them. After c takes d5, he traded queens in this moment. And after rook takes, he played a Fischer-esque type move. I believe he has the game Fischer-Petrosian from, I believe it was their candidates match, where a beautiful knight took what didn't look like such a great bishop, but in this position, the activity of the bishop started to reign with bishop to h3. Anand, realizing all sorts of threats to his position, captures, tactical ideas, moved his king away, and before taking the pawn, e5 dropped on the board, chasing this knight, trying to prove its inferiority. Instead of playing knight e4, Anand dropped back with the passive knight to e8, knight to g8, bishop takes, rook dropped back to d8, and then what do levers do? They open up lines for the pieces. And now the rook posted up on c7, controlling the entire 7th rank. This pawn now desperately moving down the board. And then the last move, bishop to e7. And now this pass pawn just getting ready to go down the board. This rook will nibble on this pawn, and black's pieces just a mess. Levers, levers, levers. They are the energy of chess, finding those right pawn breaks. But as we see in the game right now, there are no such breaks. It doesn't exist. And that's what makes this look like it will end up in a draw and will give Magnus Carlsen the title. Of course, Levon Aronian still working very hard, trying to see if maybe he can use piece play to win the game. But the young phenom looks real relaxed right now. It looks like he's just back in Norway somewhere in his living room. Just chilling.
We used to call this Thank you, Maurice. We used to call this California cool,
Oh,
and I mean, there's Magnus kind of leaning back, life is good. Let me think how I want to spend the $70,000 I'm about to win.
Taking up a lot of space, and whereas Levon is kind of like scrunched up.
Yeah.
Just trying to see if there's anything there, but not finding a thing. And this could be will be the last serious game that Magnus plays before we see him in the World Championship against Anand in India in November.
And now, I can't wait for that match.
I can't wait. And you know what? I was looking forward to it before this tournament, but now that we've been here and we've seen these games, and Magnus and all the players have been so gracious. I'm even more excited to see it.
And I tell you, how can you not be a fan of Magnus Carlsen? What he's done in this tournament, how he's handled himself at the baseball, football games, the signings, the media. He's just been easygoing and really a perfect guest.
And he's funny. He's actually he's funny. And I think he's going to get funnier in the next few years, too. That's my prediction. My bold prediction about Magnus Carlsen.
Is he's going to enjoy life to the fullest.
Funnier because he seems like he's always quoting comedy shows, quoting Ali G, and I somehow I think that his sense of humor is going to continue to develop, right?
Of course.
Then that'll be really an interesting and charismatic world champion if he defeats Anand. Or not, he'll get another crack at it just 22 years old.
Agreed, Jen. I'm just looking once more at the webcam and just how relaxed Magnus appears. And throughout this whole event, one of the things we understand, this is the most elite tournament ever held in the United States. A lot of stress on the players. Stress? What stress? I mean, Magnus has been smiling off the board throughout the event, and at the board you see him very cool, very collected. I'm a little bit surprised he went so low on the clock in this game, but he calculated that he could get this fortress position and he could hold it.
Not the most inspiring game, let's be honest, but still a very inspiring performance. And great. Both Nakamura and Carlsen in this game kind of showed their defensive chops in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. But a workmanlike performance. The only thing I could see, and unfortunately in this exact moment the king is not in the ideal place. Let me just play this move king b7 and assume this the only thing I can see, and I'm not suggesting that Levon go for broke because this could really backfire badly. There is a sacrifice, knight takes b3 in the position, but this unfortunately, with white keeping this pawn on b3, it's just not going to work, I'm afraid. Any kind of defensive move that holds this pawn on b3 should be good enough for the draw. The simple is like this, not good for a draw, but maybe even for a very big advantage.
So you're saying, like, if you already had c5 in this position,
you need a lot of things.
So you're dreaming of playing knight b3 and c4, but even then, rook b4 would be in the menu. So,
right. You need a lot of extra tempos to make this desperado sacrifice work. It's the only thing I'm seeing. And although I saw Levon take off his jacket a minute ago and really hunker down to try to find something, it's just so blocked. Even the glasses came off. He's really, you can almost feel, him screaming, like, I gotta have something. I've gotta have something. How could I pose any problem to my opponent?
Well,
it's just not there.
It traces back to the Ruy Lopez, and one of the problems we were discussing about the Ruy Lopez in the very beginning of the broadcast, that a lot of the lines in the main line Ruy Lopez involve moving the knight on c6 so that you can play c5 and get a greater stake in the center, right?
Like
There's
the
Breyer or the Chigorin with knight a5, or
That's
even
right. So many where you play for c5. Yeah.
Exactly, and here it's just like, if only Levon could play the move c7 to c5.
Right. Oh yeah, then it'd be a totally different story. He would have the lever. We're talking about if by a miracle this pawn were to magically transform itself to the square c5, then the lever c5, c4, blasting open the position is something that black would aspire towards and try to make it work. Here, unfortunately, the pawn is on the wrong square.
Well, we just can't move the knight on c6 because then b4 hangs. And if we can figure out a way to make that sacrifice work, that would be the game changer. But b4 is a critical pawn.
So, yeah, just to put that in perspective, if you could play the move knight on c6 to b8 with the idea of untangling the knights with knight on a5 to c6, if you had the time to make that maneuver, sure, black would be in great shape. Unfortunately, any retreat by this knight on c6, as you were mentioning, just hangs the b4 pawn, and there goes all your advantage completely, and suddenly I think, again, it's white for choice.
Right. I mean, you would have to find a way to play it where c5 would lead to something, but just seems to be better for white. And if he doesn't have this,
then we got to agree to a draw. Sometimes it happens that way. I mean, a finely played game by Levon. I think he'll be pleased by the fact that he held an edge, but the truth is that it wasn't enough to be decisive.
Right, and so he's got his hands in his head, Magnus leaning back in a pose that we don't see him in that often, much more relaxed than usual.
I'm used to seeing that. I'm used to this California cool. Magnus used to play with the Hilversum Chess Club in the Dutch League when he was younger, and even as a young boy. Sometimes he would actually curl his feet up, you know, but now that he's so much taller, I told him, damn, Magnus, you've grown a foot since I've seen you. I mean, and but when he was small and cute, let's say, he had his feet underneath him at times tucked. But this is his normal, easy pose.
A fantastic athlete. You know, I was talking to some of the kids at Webster, and they said they said that they played basketball and soccer with Magnus.
Okay.
And I said, how was he at basketball? They were like, he was the best of us.
Really? In basketball, I'm ashamed of the Americans. Wait a minute.
Well, these are a lot of. I mean, these guys aren't Americans either for the most part, right? They came here for the opportunities at Webster.
A lot of foreign students come to the United States for their higher studies, absolutely.
And some of them end up finding ways to stay, work visas, and etc. And then we have stronger American tournaments than ever.
Yes, of course. And here in St. Louis, we're the epicenter of collegiate chess with Webster as the national champions.
That's right, and you also have a pretty strong U.S. Chess League team, the St. Louis Archbishops.
Right, but don't forget that Seattle is the U.S. Chess League champions.
That's right, the Seattle Sluggers.
Yeah, baby. Seattle. All good things come from Seattle, as we know. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a complete blank, and I would love to see a playoff, but I don't see any way that Levon, close enough. Levon is going to break through the fortress that Magnus has constructed.
So let's take a couple of tweets. We've got one from our friend Tarjei Svensson in Oslo.
Yes.
He said, out of the last 15 tournaments, Magnus Carlsen did not win 6, and those are the Tau Memorial 2013, Norway 2013. That was a big closed tournament in Norway that Nakamura also participated in. Biel 2012, Tata 2012, London 2011, and Tata 2011, and that was the one that Nakamura actually won,
yeah,
which was his best performance so far.
That was his breakthrough performance, Hikaru's, yes.
We also have a question. We actually have something that you mentioned. Andrew Latham asks, he has an idea for black, knight d4 with the idea of knight takes b3. If rook takes b4, rook takes rook, knight takes b3, and asking about the compensation there.
Okay, well, let's, at least it's worth a look. Thank you for the kibitz. Knight d4. I think the line that he gave was rook takes, knight takes b3. What's the compensation? Probably insufficient. This knight defends the rook on a2 so that after captures, knight takes, rook takes, knight takes. The problem is that while black has a number of pawns for his piece, the reality is these are very ugly pawn structure. And I just think it's insufficient that, in fact, that would be to white's advantage once more. Anytime black, it seems to me, anytime that black undertakes such desperate action, like this type of sacrifice, it's actually going to rebound against him, and white's going to be for choice.
We've got some other comments. If pawns are ponies, what are knights?
That was from Maurice. I was a little bit surprised by the ponies reference. Peonies? I always thought that the ponies, the cavalry, were the knights.
Somebody, Nick Kay, saying that he would love to see Kramnik and Caruana in a future edition of the Sinquefield Cup. Of course, Italian-American Fabiano Caruana, also a really cool one for Americans to watch.
Absolutely.
Because he grew up here, he played chess here, and then he moved to Italy where he had a lot more opportunities to play closed tournaments, and now he's also one of the best players in the world.
Top handful of 5, yes, absolutely. Great player, in fact. And also, thanks for the tweeter who mentioned a tournament that Magnus didn't win, the Norway Masters, the Norway Championships, but the winner was Sergei Karjakin, also very young, very, very talented player, originally from the Ukraine, now representing Russia. Look out for him. So a lot of extraordinarily youthful, talented players in this generation.
Yeah, that's right. And we want to thank you all for your comments. It's been great to hear from everyone. I mean, the comments on Twitter and also some of the commentary you'll be getting via email. It's great to know that people appreciate this tournament, and I think we're getting a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah, and just to address a subject that has certainly gotten us our attention here, and a lot of email and Twitters about it. Just a little reference. We have high-speed DSL, high-speed cable. For this weekend, what we really wanted to do to ensure that the show was broadcast, we brought in satellites. So we have a big bird in the sky. We came loaded to bear. We wanted to make a great show that you would all enjoy and appreciate. So just a shout out to our entire technical team here. They really have done a magnificent job. And I especially enjoyed the intros and all of those montage of footage that
the
Randy
Spectrum Studio stuff, exactly.
Randy put together. You know, Rex exploiting his son. You know, you gotta exploit family and friends. That's what life's all about. But a shout out to them. Thank you, and to our audio people and everybody who made it possible. It was great.
And also Randy, who is the director of the Spectrum Studios, he made a guest appearance as Jason attacking you. Apparently you were late.
I'm still going to beat him up over that. Thanks for the reminder. Absolutely.
You were late for the rehearsal that day. That's why he went after you and not me.
You're the girl. You're the one that he should have gone after.
No, that's in the second act.
Second act. Okay. We'll come back for that one.
But it looks like Magnus actually has made a move. We've got a couple of moves here.
Well, Magnus has, I'm going to close.
We got G6. So G6, he wishes that he can play G5 and, you know, at least threaten some kind of lever, but Magnus had shut that down earlier with H4, so instead just G6.
So we had these last few moves. I'm going back to just the moment before the time control was reached. We saw this move Rook A1, A2, just overprotecting this C2 pawn. Then mysterious move King A7, doesn't really change the position. King slid over to G1, King B6, King F1, G6, and again King G1.
And we have an idea from an international master, Adam Hunt.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
Who I think his sister Harriet Hunt, also a very strong women player from England, many times
from the UK, yes.
British women's champion. He said, what about the black walking around to the king side to play G5?
Wow.
So all the way back.
Okay, well, thank you for
there
that.
We go. Finally, we have an idea.
Right, we were really desperate there for an idea. So the idea was suggested that to try to unnerve white and to get him out of this blockade is to make all of this king, trek all the way back to the king side so that G6, G5 can be played. Well, one of the things that we were thinking about earlier wasn't there an opportunity to play knight takes b4? So while black may go on this treasure hunt of trying to get his king over here, at some moment there might be the move knight takes b4 that we had seen earlier. to try to stop that. But thank you very much, Adam, because really I was coming up completely empty with this situation, and at least it's an idea. Maybe it's a good one. Maurice, can you chime in?
Yes, I was equally desperate and came up with the same idea, so I decided to check it with the engine to see what it thought about it, because what are you supposed to do in this position? Unfortunately, it ended up slapping me in the face with a maneuver. King to b7, played knight f2, so I said, okay, what are you doing? King c8, let's see what happens. And suddenly he played knight e d3, and the rook on d2 is suddenly trapped, and the threat of king e1 is about to appear on the board. So black has to be extremely careful for these kind of tricks in the position. So not so easy for Livon to prove himself in this position. It just looks like every idea he looks at is coming up nothing. And unfortunately for him, he's still looking at this problem of his knight on a5. Why did he put it there, grabbing that pawn? It hasn't moved since it took that pawn, frozen on a bad square, and no way to change the situation. And I guess if, by the way, someone said if pawns are ponies, what are knights? You know, ponies are like short, they don't run that fast. Knights are horses. They're big. They run down the board, and so that's my analogy. Thoroughbreds even. But not this knight on a5. That knight on a5 is stuck in mud and going nowhere fast. Jen and Yas?
Thank you, Maurice. Well, I sometimes like to call the pawn the princesses because they all want to become queens.
Right.
So a pony is kind of a corollary to that, just in case the pawn becomes a knight. It happens.
Okay.
One out of every 100 times, perhaps.
A pawn can grow up to be a knight. I like that. Okay. That seems fair enough. And again, that was actually a nifty little maneuver that Maurice just shared with us, this idea that in this position after the move g6, we are seeing Magnus shuttling his king back and forth between the g1 and f1 squares, but that idea of knight f2 with a sly plan of trapping the rook, well, you got to be aware of that at least, and something I hadn't spotted myself in the position. So still something to keep in mind for Livon. But in any case, both players are absent from the board at the moment. I'm looking at the webcam. That's a bit of a surprise.
Oh, yeah, because we thought that they would, at this moment, maybe be considering the draw offer, but it looks like Livon is going to continue to try something here. He has nothing to lose.
For sure. And by the way, again, Adam Hunt, thank you very much. I don't know if Aronian has spotted your idea of moving all the way to f6, but he just played the move king b7, so it's on its way.
Yes, it seems like that's what he's going to do.
Oh
so a lot of moves and a lot of increments are going to be built up.
Well, you know, sometimes you just have to exhaust every single possibility. Let's anticipate for a moment that Magnus does nothing.
He does nothing. He played king f1 instantly.
And we do get a situation like this. A consideration, I'm not sure it's a good idea.
So very confident Magnus Carlsen, just playing literally within 20 seconds.
Right.
He got to the board, bang.
Right, and you know, black could conceivably still go for that idea. Another possible plan, I'm not sure it's a good one, is to play like this, to at least get rid of this knight on d3 and maybe play for knight to d4. So at the moment I'm attacking the rook. Let's imagine a trade for a moment, a trade, and then trying to get the knight to d4 and go after c2. This is a possibility I think is most likely going to end up in a rook and pawn endgame that's going to be even, but okay, just a try. It's a try.
That's right. So predictions here on how long this game is going to be in terms of moves.
You know, again, considering the tournament situation and what Livon needs, a draw or a loss actually is the equivalent of the same in terms of prize money. playing all out for the win, not necessarily recklessly. I'm going to give it another 15 moves at least of maneuvering.
That's right, and 15 minutes and 15 moves might actually not be that far away because both players seem to be playing pretty quickly at this point.
Right. And do we have another move after? Let me refresh the board and just give a look at the clocks for a second. And we do have the move King C8. So, Adam, if there was a prize for best suggestion, you would have won it. Too bad for you. No prize.
A lot of honor being mentioned in the show so much, I think. And we're getting some nice comments about the show. Daniel Wrench from chess.com says that as a chess pro, chess fan, and American chess player, he wants to thank the Chess Club, Mr. Sinquefield, and others for this great event. So
Applause.
Thank you
Absolutely.
to Daniel.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, I see you getting lots of Twitters. My goodness.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
People know this is their chance as we're waiting for these two players to grind out the end game. It's their chance to get a little bit of airtime and give their thoughts on what they thought about this really historic event.
Absolutely.
Here at the St. Louis Chess Club.
We'll look back at this event and say, boy, I was a part of that. That was fun. And sorry again, there's a planned press conference, did you mention, Jennifer?
Oh, yes, there's a press conference that will be live streamed 45 minutes after the end of this round. Now that we're also going to get the winner, which presumably will be Magnus Carlsen. If somehow Ronion wins, then we'll be here for another couple of hours.
All right.
But Magnus Carlsen would come down and talk to us for a bit, and then there will be a press conference 45 minutes later. So journalists, we've got journalists all over the world here. We've got Grandmaster Ian Rogers and his wife Kathy, a photographer. We've got
Australia.
Daim from the Chess Drum. We've got Dan Lucas from Chess Life magazine. We've got Mike Klein from chess.com. Janice Nisi and Sabrina Siobhan.
From the UK.
And Italy.
And Dirk from Holland.
Right. Dirk-Jan Buzendam, who was with Maurice yesterday.
That's right.
And I mean, it's just amazing.
And don't leave yourself out. You're the webmaster for the USCF.
That's right.
There you go.
Chess journalist here as well.
Okay, get busy, young lady.
And we had Alejandro Ramirez.
Of course, from chess.com.
From ChessBase, strong grandmaster. He came and gave some really insightful positional commentary in one of our shows, and he's also doing annotations and reports for ChessBase.
Right, and by the way, he's taking over some of the activities from our dear friend Frederick Friedel, who has for decades been the face of ChessBase. So Alejandro moving into journalism, which is remarkable, but okay.
Oh,
cool.
It's great.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And we still have that. And then later after the press conference, there'll be a closing ceremony. And where will that be held?
Well, actually, the closing ceremony and the trophy ceremony are going to be right during the press conference.
Okay.
So those of you on the live stream can actually watch Magnus Carlsen accept the Sinquefield Cup in person. Okay. And it looks like the jackets are both on, and I wonder if that means that Levon is cold, or if that means that he's ready to call it
a day.
A day, exactly, and a good tournament, a good fight with black, but not able to see any way to crack the Norwegian.
Well, the guy who would give things away, and I remember it so well from my struggles with Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov had this watch, this oversized watch, that he would take off at the start of the game. He'd put it on over a score sheet. He would write his move, put the watch on the score sheet. And whenever Garry put the watch back on, that was the indication that A, it was time for you to resign, or B, it was time and he was willing to accept a draw. But when the watch came on, it meant result. And I know, Maurice, you and I were there at the Deep Blue matches, and it was fascinating to watch that Garry's psychology that he used against grandmasters had no effect against Deep Blue, none whatsoever. Maurice, going after you to share those fond memories.
Indeed, Yaz, it was incredible how much the clock watch was on in that competition. You know, Garry always wears his emotions on his sleeve, and it's what made us so intrigued watching him, or at least one of the things that made us intrigued watching him. There was also the jacket, Yaz, which he very rarely had to take off. Usually when Gary took off his jacket, it didn't mean it was time to go to work. It meant, oh my goodness, there's trouble on the board. We kept the jacket on, it meant you're not worrying me at all. My watch is off for now. And I know when it comes back on, exactly the scenarios you said, yes. But when Gary took the jacket off, it meant, whoa, I lost control of the position, and now I've got to work. And I might even lose the game. And he would put tremendous energy in that moment. When the jacket came back on, it meant I've resolved all difficulties, and either it's going to be a draw or, sorry, you completely screwed up in the time pressure, and now it's time for me to put my watch on and slam dunk everything. So that body language is critical. We know it's part of chess. You try to hide it as much as possible. Here you see these two cool customers giving away nothing physically. Well, clearly you see Magnus very calm, very relaxed. Levon on the other side working extremely hard, trying to prove something here in this position. So they still, with the facial twitches, you don't see any of that as you see in the Nakamura game. But you know Levon wants to win. And I would like to posit a small strategy, a possibility for Levon. And that is, since losing, it really doesn't matter to him. Okay, he could lose the game and maybe some rating points, but it's no difference in the standings. Maybe as far as he's concerned, he'll try to get Magnus to overreach at one point. Maybe he himself could go into time trouble. Now, that's a bit of a risky strategy, trying to go into time pressure against the best player in the world, and you might lose in a silly way. But it might be the chance to get Magnus to try to play for a win. And we just saw Magnus play that move, knight to f2, that the computer has suggested, trying to trap this rook in. And Magnus decide, hey, here's a chance. Maybe I don't just sit back. Maybe I get his rook. Of course, Levon dropped the rook back, saw the idea, but he's trying to bait Magnus maybe. Come on, do something. Do you really just want to draw to win? Try something. Let's see what happens. I don't think it's going to work, but he's pulling out all stops to see if he can maybe get the game sharp and win, at least get a fight and have a chance at getting into a playoffs for the Sinquefield Cup. Back to you, Jen and Yaz.
Okay, so the move knight d3 f2, setting up that very sly knight e1 d3 idea to ensnare the rook with king e1. Levon dropped back with his rook, with rook d2 d8, and Magnus, yeah, I think Magnus has responded. Don't quite have the move yet, but I'm just thinking that Magnus is going to reset his fortress and now say, hey, look, the rook is gone. So what happened? Maurice, further thoughts?
Yes, big news. The computers are now saying white is the one who's better in this position, that the game has changed and white is the one with a slight edge, even though he remains down a pawn. Now that the black rook has left the position, is now back home on d8, that white has a chance, a plus 0.24 edge, despite being material down. And the computer now, Houdini's saying to bring the king to the center, and let's give a random move for black, and it doesn't have any really good ideas for black, a move like king here. It sees a maneuver that's possible, knight h3 going into g5 as being possible, but first maybe playing king d2, shoring up this side of the board, and slowly black has really no plans to play for, so why can't white start doing something? So liking white's position, it's not giving any clear direction, however, as to how white will improve the game, but it thinks white's difficulties are completely over. In fact, white's the one with a slight edge. So maybe, just maybe, Carlsen might be thinking, I can win this game. I know how. Will he come out of the fortress and go for it to decisively win and give Aronian a chance? Or will he stay back? That's the big question of the hour as we go into the waning moments of the last round of the Sinquefield Cup. Jen and Yaz?
Wow, boy, and his posture sure has changed.
Well,
looking away, looking back at the board, And that would certainly be a statement.
Well, it's drama-filled all the way to the very end, and Magnus has been quoted by Maurice earlier in our shows as saying, there's no excuse for not playing out the position at all, and he just feels that professional players simply should not offer a draw regardless of the position unless it's as clear to the spectators as possibly can be. One of the things that, Maurice, as you were talking, I was trying to weigh. I love this rook on d2, don't get me wrong, but on the other hand it was trapped. Now with the move king b7, and you mentioned that the computer's all happy about king e2, well, here's a thought. After, say, king b6, and you did mention this move king d2, maybe shoring up the queen side. Well, now in this particular moment, there is an idea for black. Levon could play rook d8, a8, protecting the pawn on a6, hoping, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but hoping that he could drop his knight at long last back to b7, playing the move a6, a5, and trying to say, hey, at last I am a solid pawn up. Your other idea of bringing the knight to g5, however, is very disconcerting. After king b7, let's say knight jumps to h3, king b6, trying to set up for rook a8. Well, after the move knight g5, you're never going to get the chance to play rook a8 because this pawn on e6 is hanging, and I don't think black wants to offer that pawn as bait. So, still well within the parameters of a draw, I believe.
I think that it's very likely that this game will be a draw, but
Yes.
they haven't shaken hands yet.
No handshakes.
And Magnus Carlsen did point out in a tweet about the World Cup that he thought the pressure was more in the organizers to make it clear that you can't accept a quick draw rather than the players.
Mm-hmm.
So he was making a comment about a round in which the draws were rather quick. And
Right,
said,
in the semifinals we
yeah.
saw some of that, yes.
You can't really blame them because they're just trying to increase their chances of winning the title.
Right,
Or
and
getting to the candidates.
And they're playing exhausting, really stressful chess with, the match hangs finally on the balance of each and every move.
That rather it should be the organizer who should disallow that, because otherwise it's the players who care more about being ambassadors for the game are actually being punished.
Right.
Which is
Good point.
not exactly the incentive structure you want.
Right. What's wrong with that picture? Going back to Maurice for further insight. Maurice, help us out.
Indeed, Yaz, this idea for Aronian is really intriguing. You know how it is when you desperately need a draw to win a tournament. We've all been there. A draw is enough. You get first place. Money's in your pocket. So what do you want to do? Sit there for hours and hours and hours and be tortured by your opponent? Or find a clear line, something forcing, something direct that gives you that draw or at least the chance to win? If Magnus is sitting there thinking about this, I want the draw, Levon knows that. So instead of playing a position where he really has no chance to win, he's thinking, why force anything? Let's just keep moving pieces. Now, it's not great for us, the fans, because he's shuffling back and forth. But in his mind, he knows his opponent wants it. Like, how can I make it happen? I don't want to sit here for 50 moves. The reality is, Levon could actually play another 50 moves quite easily. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to do. Shuffle the rook back. Don't repeat moves. You notice how he's looking at the score sheet in his head thinking, I don't want to repeat the position and make this guy claim a threefold repetition. So let me just be clear on that. But if I just sit here and do nothing for a long time, will he get frustrated when he realizes I'm willing to sit for the next few hours and play? Now, the fans might be leaving by then, but this guy is after $70,000, first place in an illustrious tournament, and now we see King E2 having been played by Magnus. Will Magnus come out of that shell, the tortoise, put his head out to say, all right, enough already, I want the draw. It's too much to just be sitting here. So interesting strategy by Levon. He's an experienced veteran. He's going to test Magnus all the way down to the end, because really he's got absolutely nothing to lose, and it's Magnus with absolutely everything to lose in this situation. So we'll see what happens in the next, maybe 2 hours or so.
Why not? Why not keep it going? I mean, and I think I've discovered a more prosaic reason for putting the jackets back on. Many of the fans have left to go to Leicester's for a beer to watch the end of this.
Right.
So it's a little bit more cold.
Yeah, the
it's
room
colder.
temperature dropped down because all the warm bodies
and
left.
Maybe they're about to accept to do a handshake, but really they're like, brrr. But of course, the ones who remain, they're everywhere because they all want to get an autograph or a photo with Magnus. They're hoping, and Aronian. Of course, he's got a ton of fans himself, but I know that players are just been mobbing these players for autographs. I mean, Hikaru came on the show earlier and just said that he's never seen anything like it, that people are cheering for him as he walks by. He feels like an absolute sports star here, and he is. He was on the field at the Cardinals game and the Rams game.
Absolutely.
And we got another move from, looks like Levon has just played a move.
I'm thinking it's King B6.
Yeah, it looks like it might have been King B6.
Hard to tell from that webcam shot. But let's put it on the board so we can see. Oops, that's the wrong board. Wrong window, I mean. So in case of King B6, the idea that we were trying to nurture was Rook A8 and Knight B7. But of course, it is white to play. I think I can set up a checkmate if you like, Jen.
Ooh, let's see that.
A King D2 move by Magnus, a Rook A8 move, a Knight D1. Oh, I'm not. I'm getting the wrong tempos. I'm sorry.
I see. You're trying to play like Rook A7?
No, I was trying to play Knight C4 check and Rook A. So
I could play Rook A7 here.
Right.
And then you will get your checkmate.
Well, no, the checkmate I had was a little bit more straightforward.
You wanted something
King
that could
D6.
actually occur in a real variation.
Yes,
not
Knight
just a
D1.
self-made variation.
Well, this is a bit of a self-mate. Rook A8, Knight E3, Knight B7, Knight C4 check. Oops. That was the checkmate variation I had in mind. Of course, it's not going to happen, but I just like, when I see checkmate variations, I do like to share them.
Especially in positions like this where it doesn't even seem possible.
Exactly. So Levon, pardon me, he did play King B6, and here's another variation. I don't think that this is actually a very good one. In this particular case, I don't think Knight D1 is a very good move in this case because there is this funny knight check. Now, where do you go? If your king doesn't protect the knight, doesn't stay safely protecting the knight.
Sure, like if I were to play something like King F2, you would snag that pawn on
B3 or C2.
Or C2. And
right.
Then you would just have to worry about some possible in-between moves, maybe grabbing a pawn of our own. But.
Right. So King B6, King E2, King here. So Knight D1 doesn't work. I think our main move had been King E2. Let's just follow this line of thought for a moment. Rook A8, the only idea we've been able to come up with so that we could release our knight. We were looking at a line like Knight H3, Knight back. At long last, Black is ready to utilize his extra pawn with the move A6, A5, but White is just in time with this extremely annoying move, Knight H5, Knight H3 to G5.
Right, we want to be able to play Knight D4 and A5 in this position, and then everything would be lovely. But
well, maybe there's still juice here. Knight B7 to D8. At least at the moment, Black is holding on to everything.
True. And I wonder if where the knight can maneuver to next.
Well, this knight could possibly go here, but at least finally we're finding some breakthrough ideas, or at least ideas that keep the winning chances for Levon alive, and maybe this game is about to flare up again. Maurice, do you agree with me that we're seeing opportunities for Levon that he didn't have, say, 10 moves ago?
No, I don't think so, Yaz. I think that he really doesn't have opportunities, but he has the whisper of opportunities. I think what he's doing is he's saying to Magnus, maybe I'll do something. Maybe the idea you just said is possible. Clearly, Magnus is fine and should be fine for a long time. But Levon is saying, I'm going to keep trying, and I want you to think about what may happen. In Levon's case, any suggestion of this idea, like you said, with Rook A8 and maybe being able to drop his knight back and play A5, any suggestion of consolidation is a problem for Magnus because he's busy thinking, I don't have to do anything, I can just shuffle back and forth, and then suddenly he sees, well, maybe there's an idea on the other side of the board. If he has to look at all of Levon's ideas, it becomes harder for the defender, right? We know that the defense is usually harder than the attack because the defender has to calculate everything, all lines, while the attacker just has to find the one line that works. So Carlsen will have to keep being confident in this situation, don't really do anything, keep his position solid, and he should be okay. It doesn't seem as if Levon has much. Levon, on the other hand, should just keep doing small things, trying to improve his position, and see what happens, see if he can get Carlsen to come out of his shell. But again, Carlsen looks like he's either in his living room or laying back on a chair on the beach. I mean, he doesn't look at all concerned about what's going to happen. So maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago when he was a little kid, but now that he's a veteran of the circuit, you're not going to cause these psychological ploys to work on him, I don't think, in this kind of position. Jen and Yaz?
And now we have our final time control. So 12 minutes for Carlsen and 9 minutes for Aronian. So a lot different from earlier in the game when Carlsen was way below on time and was actually using his increment for the last few moves of time control.
What do you mean by the third time control, Jen?
I'm saying the second. It's the
second.
last. Didn't I say third? I meant last.
Okay.
The final time
The
control.
final time control. Okay, so how it works is the player's got a 30-minute bonus after move 40. And what you're saying is there's no more bonus time, and they're going to have to rely upon the 30 seconds that they receive for
Not
each
that
move.
should be so hard in this type of position.
Okay, but if it flares up, yeah, that's something that we definitely should pay attention to. And as we know, I mean, we're sitting here in our broadcast studio enjoying the action, having a lot of fun commenting on the players' games. We're not that stressed. But these guys might be getting fatigued, and that was where, in a lot of their interviews, they spoke about their stamina and the need.
And it looks like there might have been a verbal offer of a draw in this position, and Magnus now twirling a pawn, twirling his pawn as.
To be clear, who offered the draw?
Levon offered a draw.
And Magnus is thinking
So
about
Magnus-
playing for a win.
Magnus thinking. Not now that he's got the offer of a draw, he's saying, wait a second,
Wow.
I better check and make sure that everything is good here. Most people in this situation with $70,000.
Would say thank you
And
very much
a
and have a
pretty-
nice day.
A position that he was under pressure for a long time would be like, okay, bang, 1 minute. But instead, thinking over, and this is actually kind of cool. I think all the kids out there watching this, take a cue from Magnus, and somebody offers you a draw, never say yes right away.
Give
because
it consideration what's going on.
never say yes right away unless you're about to flag or something, because you know that draw offer does not expire until you've made your move.
Right.
And I've seen people do it, make a blunder, offer a draw, and their opponent's so excited because they thought their position was bad that they're just like, yes.
Right. Well, in this
So-
case, I mean, Magnus thinking about it, but looking at the tournament standings, I mean, I must say,
position.
and the position. Well, I would say thank you and great tournament, Levon, and thank you for the draw offer. But Magnus, true to himself, he said that professionals should play till the very end. Maybe thinking about doing just that and defying what mere mortals do. Maurice.
And great psychology also. I mean, fantastic psychology because these guys are going to play so often.
Of course, down the road.
Putting the pressure on Levon and saying, you might offer me a draw in a situation like this, but I'm going to fight to the very end. Maurice, what are your thoughts?
I think it's bogus. I think he's sitting there thinking, yum, 70 G's, got it. There's no way I could imagine him making another move. That would be incredible if he actually played another move on this board. I think now you see for the first time a bit more agitated. His body language has shifted dramatically, maybe like 5 or 6 times in the last 2 minutes. Sitting there thinking about his position, he is still okay, and maybe he can make a couple of moves and then later offer Levon a draw, but maybe Levon will put the shoe back on the other foot and say, you're trying to embarrass me, I'm going to have to do the same to you. So you see here how he's shifting constantly. He's got to be a little bit nervous. His clock is ticking down. It's time, as far as he's concerned. He's just been gifted the draw. Certainly you would think he would take it, but he's adding drama to a situation that it seems you wouldn't have expected at all. Fascinating to see if he makes a move with the fact that his 70,000 has literally been handed to him. It's more than just, and he has made a move. Incredibly, he's declined the draw offer and decided to continue with 70 grand in his pocket. He can win no more. There's nothing beneficial to him to making another move. Absolutely nothing. And he has actually decided to continue playing and allowed other results to enter. This is simply incredible that he's done this. Very impressive from the young phenom, a real statement about his fortitude and determination and willingness to fight.
I love it. Absolutely incredible decision by Magnus. I hope lots of young students all over the world are watching this and taking a cue from this guy. I mean, he's been extremely successful, so it's not about the money here, right? He's got a lot more money on the line against Anand, and I think that might be in the back of his head. Anand, we're going to have really long games. You might offer me a draw in a situation where it seems like I'm going to jump at it, but I'm just going to keep playing.
Well, and again, I think it goes to his professionalism, and I mean, he's true to his word. Magnus has been a very forthright, very honest, clear principle player. He says, hey, listen, there's simply no excuse for not playing to a finish, and he's showing it now. Here he's been gifted first prize. He says, no, that's not what I'm about. What I'm about is showing, high drama in chess.
We love it.
And maybe, I don't think he's thinking so much of the rating points. Maybe he is. Or maybe he's just simply trying to say a statement to his nearest and closest rival. Just because you want to draw and want to gift me the tournament, it doesn't mean that I want the draw. And maybe, he's thinking down the road. Or, like I say, it's just about who he is as a player and as a person. He wants to show what fighting chess is really about. And
I actually think it's
applause.
I really think it's a very shrewd psychological decision. I mean, the message that this sends to his rivals, people used to say that when they played Kasparov, it was so intimidating, and they would also often play underneath their normal level.
Below their level,
because he just had such a energy, and also he's the #1 player in the world. Now you have not only the fact that Magnus is the #1 player in the world, but you also have this aura where, you might never be able to offer a draw. So
right.
I like that. I think it's a